All right. Well, welcome to another episode of Comic Book Squares. We're going to do another interview today. My name's Shane.
I'm Paul.
I'm Ben.
And I'm Mike. Let's get the show started.
All right. Well, don't forget to hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell so we can keep bringing you good content like this. So, Chris, why don't you kick us off and just tell us a little bit about your program, what you got going on?
Thank you. Christopher Michael from Homebrew Comics. We have a book called C.R.I.T, which is based off of a D&D campaign that I homebrewed with superheroes in it. And it's like a modern fantasy adventure with a superhero backdrop. Pretty much just me trying to kill my friends tons of times. And I put it in the comic book form. The fun part about it is everything happens at the table at the mercy of the die. So nothing is predetermined. There's no predetermined story at all. It's all by chance and luck and role play. So everything you read and everything you see in the book has happened at our table. It's all organic. All those conversations happen. And yes, as a dungeon master, it is my job to try and kill them. So that's the fun part. On Kickstarter right now, we have our 7th entry, which is issue 6. We have 0 through 6 on Kickstarter. And we funded in a little under 20 minutes last night. We're sitting almost at $3,000 right now in less than a day. And about to unlock the first stretch goal. So I'm really excited. This has been such a great launch. I was nervous because Q4 launches are always scary because you're coming up on Christmas and everything. And I didn't know how many people would turn out. But I keep telling myself every Kickstarter, remember, this isn't my first one. And we're blessed to have a lot of repeat readers. So, I humbly say that we have a reader base, which is freaking amazing. I saw a lot of repeat names on the Kickstarter last night, and that just meant a lot because as an independent publisher, to see the same people come back multiple times, you don't get that a lot. And so I'm very humble about this, and I appreciate everyone that's checked this out. If you haven't, please hit up homebrewedcomics.com. I have issue 0 for free. If you like that, check out the Kickstarter, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, we'll have, just for all the listeners and the viewers and stuff, check the show notes, check the description on the video on YouTube. You'll see links off to the campaign there, and any and all the links that that you want us to put up there, they'll be included down there, man. Cool.
Excellent. Well, if you don't mind, I kind of have a more of a business related question just to kick us off, because I think a lot of the people that end up tuning into our show are independent creators themselves. So just curious, you said that you reached your goal of 3,000. Just, from that standpoint, what does it take to get your book published, and how many does that usually cover when you get to that number that you needed to get to?
So actually the goal was only 1,500. We crushed that. But most of almost everything I do by myself. I do on this book. I'm actually doing inks, colors, lettering, the whole 9 yards. I used to do. This will be the first book that I do by myself for coloring. I did have a colorist up until now, but I really wanted to challenge myself as an artist. A lot of people don't know that I taught myself how to draw in order to do this comic book. I knew how to draw. I had done some stuff like as a kid, but I had never done this level of artwork. And so when it came time to do this, I am not a man with a ton of money, and I love my wife, so I didn't want to get divorced by paying an artist. So I taught myself how to draw. And, anyone that's heard me talk before knows that my wife is very supportive, and she's very talented. So she took a lot of time and helped me learn how to draw. And I say that nicely, but it was probably the most brutal experience of my life, having my wife come behind me and erase my artwork in front of me, or circle it and tell me that it's completely wrong. And, so everything that you read from books 1 through 4, really, about middle way through 4, I brought her a page one night, and I had put a lot of work into it, and she looks at me and she goes, I think you're at the point where I really don't need to critique this stuff anymore. She does offer some advice here and there, but I had this one pose, and she's like, "It looks like his ankle's kind of broken. Why don't you straighten that out?" And now we're moving into colors, and my wife's also a professional photographer, so she has this gift for seeing where light needs to be and where it doesn't, and colors, and she's just all around very talented. And so when we entered the color world, I started doing some colors, and that brutalness came back out. She was like, "Nope, just take it back to the base colors. We need to start over." And it's been a challenge, but it's very rewarding for me as the creator to be able to have the ability to bring this to life in my own visions and not through other people. As a dungeon master, as writing a book about my best friends, it's kind of cool to be able to control all the elements. The only thing I paid for in this, as far as artwork, is I love to get talented cover work done, because I know a lot of very amazing cover artists, and so I've got 4 really cool covers on here. Plus, I'm doing a metal cover for one tier, and I love to outdo myself. So I went ahead and got custom energy drinks made for this one. It's called Caffeinated Chaos, is the name of the book, and I was like, you can't go in with a book named Caffeinated Chaos and not have an energy drink. So we, for about 3 months, I went back and forth with a drink creator, and we got our own flavor, and it'll be actually just got the shipping
that you
notes
also
today.
learned how to create energy drinks. So
I thought about it. I was in bodybuilding for a long time. Well, about 6 years, I did bodybuilding competitions, and I met a lot of really cool people, and a lot of guys in that industry learn how to make their own drinks. And a friend of mine, his roommate was actually the guy that made Ghost. And I reached out to him and I was like, "Hey, can your roommate help me out?" And he was like, "Oh, they're huge now. He doesn't even talk to me anymore." I was like, "Man, that sucks." But I looked into it, and it is very costly to get into your own powder forms and these things. So, more background about me: I was signed to a record label for about 6 years, and the record label owner got us custom energy drinks one year. With it was just labels, and you got to pick flavors and kind of mix and match your flavor how you wanted it. And so I called him and I was like, "Hey, I know you didn't spend 10 grand on this, because I know you wouldn't spend that on us. How much did you spend?" And he was like, "Well, it was a bit of money." And he got me the contact and said, "Hey, just contact them, tell them I sent you." And so I started talking to them. They sent me some samples. I haven't had a sense of taste in 2 years since I had COVID. So I brought my friends over and we did a blind taste test, and I was like, "Tell me which one's good."
That's
So
awesome.
Nice. Oh, man.
yeah, we do. I do a lot as far as merchandise and business related, like marketing things. We've done in the past. I've got statues. I've got 2 different statues. My favorite, though, and it seems to be the fan favorite, is the stuffed C.R.I.T doll, which is the talking cat in our book. He has a drinking problem, and he loves to smoke cigars. And like any cat, he's a jerk. So, of course, all the kids love him. It's amazing. I set up at any con, and one con I was actually a little bit late, and I just put the cats out first because they were the first thing in the bag. And before I could set anything up, there was 2 little kids just grabbing at them. And their parents were like, "So I guess we're buying these?" And I was like, "Oh, they go with a comic book." And the kids were like, "I want that too." And so I sold like 10 books right then and there, and I hadn't even unpacked my stuff. So,
Wow.
parents beware, I have a trick now. So,
Got to have a gimmick. Well, they've often said that, dogs have owners, but cats have staff. So,
yep. And that's actually in this book what happens. So in this book, my guys created their own coffee/energy drink company because they quit their jobs to be heroes. And I was like, "But if you quit your jobs, you can't pay for the suits and the bullets and everything else you use." And they were like, "Well, we have this big lump sum of money. We're going to buy a van and turn it into a mobile coffee unit. And we're going to travel around the city and fight crime out of it so we can just jump out and do our thing and come back." Well, they jump out, and who's left to, run the coffee shop except the cat, So you have this, and we have a talking owl and chameleon now that have been released in the series, and all three animals decide to take over the coffee shop. And we'll just say that OSHA isn't really a big fan of that.
Well, that's that brings up a question I wanted to ask, which is, since this is based on an active campaign, how have you found, like, what difficulties have you found in trying to translate what's happened in the campaign into a story? Because I'm sure, like, some of the flow and stuff you have to work with yourself or manipulate a bit to make it flow as a story. But what are some challenges you get from that?
Challenges are when I put about 8 to 10 hours, if not more, into creating something, and I have this vision, and I'll even draw it out sometimes prior to the game because I'm that excited about it, and then they spend 5 minutes on it and tell me this sucks and do something else. I omit those moments, not out of embarrassment, I promise. I omit anything that I feel is distracting from the story. I learned early on that I can't control the campaign. I direct them. I react to them. This story is, the world is very reactionary to what they do. In the beginning, the very beginning of the game, I was more of a hands-on DM. And slowly I realized the more I tried to be heavy-handed in what I wanted to do, the less enjoyment they got. And so I just started doing these things where I'm like, hey, this is what's going on in the city, or wherever they're at. What do you want to do? Or how do you handle this situation? And they never do it the way I would think. So I just have like a list of things that I want to have happen, and I just randomly place them along the way. So they kind of direct the path, and then I just play God and go, bam, this happens, In the book, I record everything on my iPad or my phone, and for about 2 to 3 weeks prior to starting the artwork, I listen to it all 4 to 6 hours when I'm at work, when I'm in the car, I'm at the gym, whatever I'm doing. Instead of listening to music, I'm listening to my friends be assholes to me for a few hours. And I learn, I really don't, I actually remember most of the campaign, but it's not much fun. But I remember like the sequences and kind of the small things that have happened, so I can go, oh man, I got to make a note, and I'll grab my phone, I'll make a note real quick, make sure this happens, and I'll get a plan for the first probably 4 to 6 pages of the book, and I'll send it to the guys, and I'll say, hey, these are about the sequences that happened. These are the panels I envision that can at least tell the story. We don't have to show everything because there's just too much in a D&D campaign sometimes, especially with 4 to 5 active people. And I'll omit some of the really, really dumb stuff. Most of it's done by one character in particular, Caliber, and I created a Sunday comic strip for him called Caliber's Corner, so most of his dumb antics I get put into some kind of Sunday comic form that goes in the end of the book. So you still see the dumb stuff, but it doesn't take you out of the storytelling element. There's actually this campaign, one piece of it, the guys decided to split. 2 guys went and did something that literally leads nowhere, does nothing for the story, dead ends, and then they wind up literally coming right back and finishing the story with the rest of the guys because they didn't like what they were doing. And so instead of creating a separation for the reader, we found a way to write them into the story organically. They have a smaller role in the main part, which is okay because it's D&D and we all have people that don't participate as much. But it doesn't take the reader out of what we're doing and is not distracting. And we don't have that episode 8 situation where you could remove an entire storyline and it makes no impact on the story.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That's awesome.
I think that's such a unique and interesting idea, for a way to get your story, elements together, to basically have a game and then you record it and then pull the stuff that you love out of it. I think that's just brilliant. I don't think I've ever heard anybody doing it that way. So, kudos to you. It's really, really cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I get a lot of feedback on it and people asking how we do it. And I'll be honest, I just thought that's how it was supposed to be done. I have no background in this stuff. I just really wanted to make a comic book. I do like comic books. If you could see my room, I don't know if the video shows, but I have comic books everywhere in here. My dad was a comic book artist. I grew up around this stuff as a kid, and I've always enjoyed it. I never really thought of myself as being part of the industry. And when COVID hit, and I was sitting here looking for something to do, and I just started drawing out of nowhere, it clicked. And I envy the guys that actually do write their story. I know lots of people who have these 40-year-old characters in their head that they've been trying to bring to life, and I envy that. They've had so much revision, they've had so much growth in their head for a character, and here I am going, oh, here's a recording of my dudes. Yep. Tried to kill him there, didn't work. Oh, I put this there. And it's a completely different experience. And I sat on a chat one day with a bunch of writers, and they were telling about their process, and I was amazed. I was taking notes. I'm like, wow, if I ever want to write a story, this is how you do it. And they're like, Chris, you're like, so many books in, how do you continue that story? And I just grabbed my iPad, and I'm like, oh, here's all the recordings of everything that happened, and I storyboard it. And they were like, well, that seems really easy. I was like, but the difficult part is I have to listen to them for so many hours. Storyboarding is something I actually really enjoy. I have worked with a couple small film companies in the past, and so I've taken scripts and storyboarded them before, and I enjoyed that because I'm a visual person. Like, I picture a lot of things in my head. I'm one of those guys on the road that I play out horror movies with cars. I'm like, well, if this happens, then how is this going to affect this? And like, my brain just goes in that direction. So with the recording, I'm able to really picture how all this stuff is supposed to play out. And I am blessed too, because my guys are really artistic in their own ways, and they'll give me feedback. One of my guys he knows 7 different forms of martial arts. He's actually in the process of creating his own with a crew. He has like a statewide assembly of people that are working on this. And so he shows me a lot of he'll actually take pictures of what moves are supposed to be like. He was in like his dojo the other day with somebody, and he's like, hey, when we're doing the scene, and he starts taking pictures of himself beating somebody up, He's like, it should go like this. And so I love getting that from them because, and this is the same guy that called me and said, hey, I blame you for this $1,500 purchase I had to make. And I'm like, what did I do? He goes, well, I had to buy this gun because you drew it in the book. So now I drew like this fancy 1911. And he's like, I had to buy one. It was $1,500. It's your fault. So if anybody asks, you made me buy this. And that's just how they are. They love the growth of the characters. And I'm the only one that's like social about this stuff. I'm the only one that has the face. They're more in the background. But I do like to tell everybody how important it is to them. I share everything, all the success with those guys, and some of them have been through some things in the past few years that have been really tough on them, and they've called me and been like, hey, you shared this fan art with me, or you told me this story about what's going on. And he goes, today was just a really rough day, and that just made it all better because somebody's really enjoying what our characters are doing, and all we wanted to do was get together and have fun. And so there's so many layers to this comic book that, on the outside it just looks like a normal superhero adventure story, but through those pages it is about a group of friends, and that's my goal every time, is to portray a group of friends having fun in dangerous situations.
Yeah, that's
very cool. I love it.
Yeah, that's one thing when you were talking about the writers group, I was thinking, you're talking about your process and allowing your friends to kind of play this out, but really you still are, being a DM is no joke. You're putting together an actual story campaign and all this. So you are spending all this time kind of ideating a story. So in a way you're almost worse off than the other writers because they have full control of that. You're putting together these story elements, and then your friends can just screw it up as much as they want.
They do screw it up, but they add to it as well. It is cool to see my original idea for something, and then I bring it to the table, and they chop it 5 different ways, and I'm like, oh wow, that's really cool. You know, like I didn't see it that way, but it's really cool that you did, and now I can't see it any other way. Like even the character, the way, like I built the classes, and when I'm building these classes, I picture how I would play these characters, right? And like we have Boulder, who is your fighter class. He's a barbarian monk build, and for D&D players, he's really overpowered. You know, he is pretty much, if you ask him to describe the character, his idea was taking Eddie Murphy and giving him All Might's powers. And, you know, he plays it perfectly.
Nice.
But he's so hard-headed. I called him one day and I said, hey, I want to draw you elbowing somebody in the face. Like, you're a grappler by nature. Like, he actually was, in North Carolina, he was an Olympic-class wrestler at college. And I was like, I know you know how to grapple and you know how to do all this stuff. I used to wrestle. You know, I went 4 years in high school. I mean, I would use my elbows if I'm grappling and knock somebody out. And he goes, well, if I'm going to knock somebody out with my elbow, you have to build a specific move for me to do it. If not, I'm punching all the time. And I was like, but you grapple. And we fought with him for about a year until he grappled somebody in game. And he won because we built this class to literally have all these additional like grappling bonuses. Never used them. Finally, he used it and he goes, "Can we put that in the book a little bit?" And I was like, "I built the class for grappling," and I was like, I purposely built it because I know wrestling very well, and I put all these moves in there for him. He never used them. I'm like, "You only punch things. Like you have the strength enough to pick something up and throw it and do damage, but you don't even do that. You just punch." And you know, it's his character. He plays it the way he wants. But again, it's unique because they all do something different with these class builds than I would do or anybody else would. So I love that, and I hate it at the same time, but I hope that shows well in the book.
You know, it's interesting. Ben brought up an interesting point about the way that you're putting this the series together. It actually reminded me of like a show like Big Brother. Basically, you put a bunch of people into a room and you have some ideas for how the storyline's going to go, and then you get all the footage back, and basically you're putting it together in the editing room. You look at all the footage and you cut the story together from that. So you're doing something really interesting and unique as far as the way that you craft your story. So you should should be really proud of the coming up with something innovative in the comic book industry. I think that's really amazing.
I do really, really appreciate that. I've been doing this. I started in 2019 with the rough version of the book, which, if anybody did get my trade paperback, I released that first chapter. And at the very end, I'll show you guys if you can see some of this work. This was the original art that I did, that I taught myself how to do. And have you guys checked out the book yet? I don't know if we sent some digital copies.
Oh, yeah.
So, I've gotten a little bit better because my wife ripped that one apart. I never released it because she embarrassed me so bad with that one. That entire book is what...
I can't even agree with my girlfriend about how we put dishes into the dishwasher, and to have her teach me how to draw. I can't imagine.
Coming from music and a lot of things that I've done in life, I've learned that I always do it wrong the first time. So when I joined my first band, who we eventually got signed to a record label that got bought by Sony, I didn't know how to play guitar. I lied to them and said, yeah, and I just did some cool stuff on a guitar real quick that I had bought. And I had taken maybe 2 or 3 lessons just to be able to know a chord. And I lied to these guys. I was like, yeah, I can play. I showed up at band practice that next week, and the guitarist looks at me and he goes, "You don't know how to play at all, do you?" I was like, no. The first show we played, I wasn't even plugged in, and we had a sold-out venue. I just jumped around and looked. He walks up to me and he goes, "Chris, I don't want our first show to be an embarrassment, so I'm going to unplug you, and I'm going to put my cabinet on your side." He's like, "But you look cool jumping around, so can you do that?" And I was like, "Sure, no problem." I'm one of 11 kids. It's always been a tough thing, and I have no ego when it comes to stuff like this. I would much rather take the step back and say, how do I do this right? Because every time I start something, I went to my first bodybuilding competition. I didn't even like diet or do anything. I just showed up and got tanned. And I'm looking at everybody, and I'm not like, I'm not in a bad shape at all. I've stayed in good shape my whole life. I have sports and all these other things that I did. But I never knew what a competitor was supposed to. I didn't even have Instagram at the time to see all the the super steroid guys. And I look at my buddy who's been doing shows like for years, and he takes his jacket off. We would have been talking all day, and he takes his jacket off, and I'm like, oh man, that's what I'm supposed to look like. So I did the show. I had dehydrated myself to the point where my eyes were dried out. I couldn't see anything. Like, it was really bad. I just Googled basics of bodybuilding, and I was like, oh, okay, this is easy. And I get off stage, and I go up to my friend, and I say, hey, do you coach people? And he's like, well, actually, I do. I said, well, cool, because I used to live on this guy's couch, like, years and years and years ago. And he's like, if I had known you were going to get into it, I would have helped you. I was like, well, I always have to stumble first. I was like, so I wasn't upset that I sucked. I took last place. I no ego again. I said, cool, tomorrow can we start coaching? And then I did 3 more shows that year, and I got second and third place, and I wound up getting first place after my third show. I did it for about 6 years, almost died once, and literally I was given 3 days to live, and then I quit. But that was more because they uncovered some health issues that I didn't even know I had. And so hung that up, and then I got into comic books a couple years later. And again, didn't know what I was doing, did it wrong, and then somebody had to come in and say, this is how you do this right. So seems to be my thing.
You just hold the pen and jump around a lot. You look really
Yeah, exactly. Just get on these lives and tell people that you did it. Somebody else is behind you actually doing it.
Man.
You come home, talk to the wife.
Right.
I'm going to need some coaching.
Yep.
You're like a Renaissance man. I mean, you got everything going on. It's amazing.
Reinvention.
I like to
reinvention.
be active. I get bored real easy, so I gotta stay active. And I love creating things. I've always been a creative kid. I say kid, I just turned 39. But I've always kept my brain active, and this is something that I don't really. There hasn't been a negative moment in comic book making. I remember music. I actually just played a reunion show after 15 years. We did this big venue in North Carolina. They had like a 4-day event, and we got to go out and do it. And it was awesome. I hadn't been on stage in 15 years. And I'll tell you what, working with those guys for 6 months on a reunion show, like a 45-minute set, I remembered why I didn't want to do it anymore. Working with creative people is tough. But the comics have been very unique in the matter that everybody's been very welcoming. I've had so many great experiences at cons. Drawing, especially someone who doesn't have an art background, and putting myself out there, there's always been this like nervous piece of me, like, do people like what I'm doing? Is this worth somebody putting $5 into, right? And when I talk to people and they give me that, oh, this is really cool, I really like this, or that even the compliments I get on the artwork, like those things, I'm not really used to all that. I'm used to being told, turn your volume down and shut up. And so to have those experiences that I've had and know that people actually like the story we're telling. I've got a plan for 42 books in here, and we're at 38 right now written. So I'm not going to go anywhere. Another reason why I wanted to do it all myself is so, even if we don't fund on Kickstarter, I'll just draw cover myself, and we'll put it online. Just the fact that people want to collect stuff and love buying the different covers. And I've had these artists that I follow on Instagram and Facebook that do, major work for other people. They'll send me stuff for my book, and they're like, your book's awesome, and I think that is what keeps me going here. Like, we're not going to stop playing D&D, so I'll keep creating, and hopefully everyone continues to like what we're doing.
Chris, one thing I was going to say, well, first off, kudos. See this shirt? Brings together all the things you've been talking about, bro. Right? Hellfire Club. I don't know if you watch Stranger
Hellfire
Things
Club.
or not.
Yeah, it's actually a staple.
All right. So there you go. You got the guitars, you got the D&D. But one thing I wanted to really, I guess, ask a question is that a lot of the folks that we've had on the show talk about their apprehension to, like you said, you kind of don't bring your ego to the table. Is there anything you can do for these folks that what we have heard in the past is that, hey, I'm scared. What if I get rejected? Or I had this experience at this con and it really, turned me off to certain things. Or, like you said, you're trying to be kind of get your hand in all the different little areas, whether it's coloring or writing or, storyboard, just all this stuff. I guess, is there anything that you could say to the listeners and the viewers that would help them, I guess, kind of overcome some of that apprehensiveness to just get out there and do it,
Yeah, actually, I can give a few things. For one, I have a sales background, so I've worked 100% commission, and making 10 phone calls to get one sale, that means you literally have to deal with 9 no's, right? But that first yes that you get, no matter if it's $10 commission, $100 commission, you feel great, right? And the same thing goes with comics. The hardest thing that I had to learn here was I have friends that I see post their weekly polls from comic book shops that have never backed my book. In fact, I've given them free copies, still haven't read my book. And those are friends of mine. People, and I don't hold any ill will towards them. There's no salt. Does it suck? Yeah, it sucks. But that just shows me where I fall in their priorities. At the same time, there's been 50 people I don't know that have told me they like it. So get yourself out there, because you're gonna find the one person that likes what you're doing, and that one person's also gonna know one person, and so on and so forth. And when it came to music, I had to do this too. Was you're doing it. You're doing something that other people are literally sitting there saying, "Well, I don't know if I'm ready yet. I'll do it when." And as someone, I've actually been clinically pronounced dead 3 times. And like I said, in 2015, my doctor gave me 3 days to live. I had to fill out paperwork, call next of kin.
Wow.
It was really scary at 30. I think it was like 33, right? Something like that. Long time ago, 32. I forget. But literally facing your own mortality and saying, "What haven't I done?" Right? And I'll be really honest with you. The only thing I hadn't done when I was laying there was go to Italy. That was the one thing I really wanted to do. I've lived most of my life like just like not rip off Nike, but just do it, because whether you try and fail or try and succeed, you're still trying, which is what most people don't do. And if you put out something and it's not the best, you still put something out and you can still be the best. Whereas the person who might be the best, and like they might be a better artist, they might be a better writer, they're not putting anything out. So they're not even the best, right? Because no one knows who they are. There's always going to be somebody better, no matter who you are, right? There's always somebody better. No matter what industry, no matter what you do in life, someone will be better. Just be the best you can be, and be proud of it. There's a reason that I don't draw any of my own tattoos. It's because if I look at my tattoo that I drew a year ago on my arm, I know I could do better. If I go to an artist and I give that artist an idea, I know that I got the best artwork they could do at that point in time, and I don't know where they're at now. I don't see their day-to-day. So just think of yourself. You get out the door, put it out there. Someone will like it, and never be afraid to ask for help, because I was literally a guy. I found Instagram, and I did it again where I was like looking at some indie comics. I'm like, oh, I thought indie would suck, but these guys have some awesome art. I guess I have some work ahead of me, And I put out a book that I felt comfortable with. I remember my first review. I had a review come out, and it said the artwork was okay. The story started off, and the review went like, You know, you're reading through the story. It reads like a very traditional origin story, your first book you expect from an indie comic. And then the ending kicks you in the nuts. And the review was amazing. And I had a marketing guy at the time who I wound up firing because he didn't get my vision. He was upset. And he goes, well, they didn't say your artwork was great. I said, my artwork doesn't have to be great. Well, they said your story was like an origin story. I said, it's supposed to be. It's literally a book one in a D&D book. You know, this shouldn't. I'm not remaking the wheel. I wanted comfort. I wanted people to feel accessible. But I wanted to kick you in the nuts at the end of the book. And that's what the review said. So that goes to show the guy that I'm paying to like my stuff is like, oh, that's not how it should be. But the guy who's reviewing it that shouldn't like my stuff because he doesn't know me got it. And I was like, you know, finally someone gets it. And you're going to have those moments. I work with a group of guys called the Savage Sandbox. It's a group of collaborative people on Instagram that we all had this similar visions. And a lot of them were afraid to get their books out. I had guys that had books in their heads for 40 years. They put their first issue out. They funded in 5 minutes. Another guy did it. He funded in 7. They're going on second and third issues. They're going on 5,000 and 6,000 followers on Instagram now. We're doing cons together. If there's anything I've learned from not just myself, but the guys around me, is just to get your ideas out there. Even if you're just posting some stuff on Instagram, if you're just maybe releasing a page or two at a time, maybe you can't afford that front load of a colorist, or if the idea of putting a book out in a whole is scary, just put a few pages out. You know, I was finding random people that I didn't know, and I said, hey, can you give me some feedback on this? And they'd message me and go, oh, you know, it's pretty cool. No, you don't. When you hear feedback, you think I actually want to be told something I want to hear. No, I want you to tell me how bad I suck, you know? And they gave me some, like, I asked them, would you buy the book? And they were like, well, actually, yeah, I would, but maybe in the next book do this. I had a friend of mine that said, why would I read your book when I don't even know any of the characters? He goes, can you put something in the front of the book that has the characters' names because you expect me to know who these people are? And I was like, that's a good idea. And he was brutal. He was like, this is stupid. I don't know any of these characters. You know, he was kind of like 3 beers in for the night. But I say that and it's funny, but like that brutalness is what got me here. So open yourself up. And I say this to every creator. Actually, I had a creator recently that was trying to tell me all these great big things he wanted to waste money on for a con. And I was like, but you're just wasting money. Like, it might look cool to you, but who are you, right? Like, you just complained that you couldn't pay a bill the other day. Why do you want to look that, like, why do you want to have this? Well, because maybe someone will think it's cool, but they're still going to buy your book. It just might look different. Who cares? You know, you have 2 books. No, at the end of the day, I always say this, nobody knows who I am and nobody cares who I am, right? So I just want to put my books out there, and I want them to know who my characters are. If nobody knows who Christopher Michael is, I'm fine. But as long as they know who Samedi and Caliber are, that's what matters. You know, 90% of the people that go and watch Marvel movies, they might know who Stan Lee is because he's a character. Stan Lee, as much as he was a creator and everything else, to people, he's a character. But they don't know the artists, right? Like, Jim Lee is a name to us in the community. But if I go to my wife and we're watching Batman and I say, man, Jim Lee was my favorite Batman artist. Who's Jim Lee? Right? So don't I see a lot of people that do this. They want them to be the center, right? As artists, you know, we want people, look at my art, right? No, look at my character. People can relate to your character. And that's like, I know I'm going off on a tangent. Sorry, I get really passionate about this stuff.
Oh, it's all good.
Great advice.
But really, if you look at any of my stories and my books, it's all character driven. I don't even have a book with my name on the front because, I mean, who wants to know? My last name is Saloff. Like, everybody butchers it. You won't see it in a book. It's Christopher Michael because that's my middle name. And I don't care. You know, you don't need to know my name. You just need to know that Crit is out there. Crit has some cool characters, a talking cat that smokes and drinks, you know? And that if I see somebody with a t-shirt on, and I'm like, oh, cool, that's my book, you know? And they don't even know who I am, fine. That's awesome. I'm happy with it. It happened to us. A buddy of mine, his wife was at work. She's working next to this guy, and he goes, hey, I picked up a comic book the other day, and one of the characters really reminds me of your husband. And she's like, you know, piqued her interest. She goes, well, what comic book was it? And he goes, oh, I picked up this book called Crit. And she goes, that is my husband. And he goes, what? His name is in the book. That's the funny thing. His name is right there on the title page. And
So let me guess, that guy's your agent now, right?
No. That was just phenomenal. He calls me and he's laughing, you know, and he goes, so this happened today. And I was like, were you upset that he didn't like know you? He goes, no, I thought it was freaking awesome that we're able to portray me so well that somebody that physically knows me was like, that's Terrell. Like,
wow.
that right there is better than anybody telling me, Chris, that picture you drew is cool. You'll forget a picture. You won't forget a character.
Yeah.
Very cool. Great advice, man.
True. Yeah.
Well, listen, this was absolutely a pleasure getting to know you and hear about your story. I mean, the stuff that you've accomplished is just amazing to me. So, yeah, I'm super happy for you, and best of luck on the book. Hopefully this, you know, the show can help bring some more eyeballs to your art and what you're trying to do out there. So, you know, thanks so much for coming on. I appreciate it.
Oh, anytime. Thank you guys so much. I love doing these things and talking about stuff. So if you ever have room, please shoot me a message. I'll jump on here anytime.
Okay.
Gotcha. Great.
I mean,
Absolutely.
we'll be, you know, expecting stuffy cats, but you know.
I actually had a reviewer recently ask if he could get one. I was like, let's see how the Kickstarter goes, because they cost me like $30 a piece.
So actually, Chris, I'm not a cat fan, so you can send mine in separate pieces if you want. That
Okay, cool. We have a teleporting dog coming. I'll hit you up on that.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah,
I'm all in
dog.
on
There
the
you
pup.
go. Yeah, nice.
Now you got Paul's attention. Yeah.
That's right.
There you go.
I have all the animals. We have reptiles. We have even a bird. We have the owl. So you know our bird fans can have somebody too.
Nice. All right. Well, thanks again. I appreciate it. All right. Well, thanks again for tuning in. Please hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell so we keep bringing you content like this, and we'll see you on the next one.